Hello everyone, I am Jayrad and welcome to Jayrad's Workshop, a place where we're going to be taking a look at items that I've created or that I've reworked from the past to fill niches that are currently not being filled in League of Legends. Keep in mind that most likely these items are not going to be balanced. They're either going to be overpowered or underpowered depending on which item we're taking a look at. What I want to illustrate overall though is just the concept of the item and not the numbers that are going to be in your screen. Today we're going to be taking a look at 4 items, 3 of which are brand new and have never been in the game before, and 1 of which I have reworked from a past version into a current one. So let's go.
Holy shit, where are we?
The first item that we're going to be taking a look at is Revenants Maze. It costs 3,100 gold, it gives 40 AP, 500 HP, and a passive called Disdain Hurt. Taking damage from a champion grants a stack, gaining 1 ability power and 10 shield, increased by 1% maximum health, not increased on ranged champions per stack. When you reach 10 stacks, grow in size and gain a 10% max health plus 50% ability power shield that decays over 2 seconds. The goal with this item is to give some AP bruisers the ability to get more survivability in teamfights, as well as more survivability during duels, because currently the item options for AP bruisers don't actually really allow for that. If you think about AP bruiser items, you have Demonic Embrace, which currently feels super underwhelming, and it's more of a burn item than an AP bruiser item. And you have Cosmic Drive, which is not really a bruiser item, it's more of a CDR / movement speed item with AP. It's kind of weird. Other things that you could say are AP bruiser items are things like Rylai's that can obviously not get utilized by every single champion. And if you are looking to get resistances for AP bruisers, you're going to have to be able to go into Zhonya's Hourglass and Banshee's Veil and things like that, or just transition into tank items after your AP Mythic. And this obviously doesn't really feel good. If you're an AP bruiser, you want resistances and you want to be able to survive in teamfights and in duels, and you want to be a menace, but the reality is that you currently can't. So with this item, what I try to do is basically make an AP Serax gauge, because I think it's an item that is currently needed. I don't think this item would be abused by tanks, because you have to have ability power for your 10 stack shield to be actually meaningful, or at least that's what I intend with the design of the item. And it wouldn't really be abused by mages because it's reduced for ranged champions, which is something that I think Riot should do more in order to prevent defensive items to be built by more ranged champions. They already obviously did it with lethality items, and they obviously did it with things like Death's Dance, which is, I think, good for the game. Now into the build path, we see that on the left we have a Giant's Belt, and on the right there's a new component item that I've created for Revenants Maze. It's called Nature's Blessing, and it's built off of a Ruby Crystal and an Amplification Tome. It costs 1,200 gold, and you can think of it as sort of a Seeker's Arm Guard, but for health instead of armor, and that way you would have the 3 defensive stats, health, magic resist, and armor for mages to, have component items on. I made this one a little bit more expensive than Verdant Barrier and Seeker's Arm Guard, which are obviously 1,000 gold. This is 1,200. The reason I did that is because health tends to have more value early on, and I don't really want this item to be built by traditional mages just so they can be more tanky and more dominant in the earlier stages of the game. So yeah, this has been Revenants Maze. Let's jump into the next item. And the next item we have is Metallic Chestplate. This is a very niche item, but I really like it. It's 2,500 gold, so very cheap, and it gives 200 HP, 30 magic resist, and 20 armor. It has an active called Way Down. Disable and become immune to airborne for 3 seconds, 90-second cooldown. The reason I like this item is because, again, some team compositions or some cheese combo things with Yasuo and things like that, airborne doesn't really have counterplay once you're airborne. Now, it can be cleansed, but you cannot move during airborne even if it's cleansed. This item would obviously make it so that you can. And being immune to airborne, not only just disabling it, for 3 seconds makes it much harder for wombo combos that knock you airborne. Things like Cho'Gath, Ornn with Malphite, and Zac, and all those other things that can be comboed. It would make it impossible to combo on you. Now, obviously, you would still take the damage of the ability, obviously, but you would not be CC'd. And I think this is exclusively a tank item. I don't think there's any other class in the game that will want that. Maybe in very niche scenarios, some bruisers might want this, but it would have to have lots of value. Now, for the build path, we have a QSS, which could finally open up a QSS for tanks so that they don't actually have to rely on Merc Treads and Tenacity Runes all the time, and they can actually invest into other things. And for completion of the build path, we have a Cloth Armor and a Ruby Crystal. So I like the fact that we have a QSS to build for tanks. I like the fact that it's very niche, so you cannot really build it every single game, and it's not always going to be powerful. This is intended to be a more weak item that you would only build in certain situations. Think of it as a Serpent's Fang, but Serpent's Fang is currently very strong. So Serpent's Fang, but a bit weaker and a bit, I'd say, better in the situations where it can come in. And here's the past item that we're bringing back. It's Deathfire Grasp. I'm sure some people will be happy, some people will be super disappointed at this, but I absolutely love this item. So the goal with this item was to make one mythic that was used by champions who want to reach high amounts of AP. Now, currently in Season 11, mages have a very, very hard time getting to high amounts of AP. The reason for that is Death Cap's nerfed. I mean, it used to cost 3,800 gold, which is... it's crazy for what it did. And even when you have Death Cap currently, since it is the nerfed version, you don't really get to those high AP numbers that you would get in the past. And it's very sad because there are some champions that really, really want to get those high AP numbers, and they just can't. And that's making them be worse than they should be. So let's read the item. 3,900 gold for 140 AP. Originally, I had it at like 160 or something, but like I figured that it would be too much. Numbers don't matter though. Like I said, this is not meant to be balanced. This is just meant to showcase what the item is. So, the passive Manifest Dominion. Increase the ability power scaling on your basic abilities by 5%. Now, this is obviously not flat 5%. It's 5% relative to the AP scaling of the ability that you're going to be having. So, needless to say, if an ability doesn't have AP scalings, this is not going to give it magically AP scalings. And if an ability has 100% AP scaling, you're going to be having a 5% extra AP scaling. So instead of 100, it's going to be 105. If you have 200, it's going to be 210. If you have 10, it's going to be 10.5 or something like that. So while you're not going to be reaching those high amounts of AP, the fact that you're increasing your scaling is going to make it so that you don't actually need to hit those numbers of AP like 1,000 or 800, 900, 1,000 AP that some champions really like. You're not going to be hitting that, but you're also not going to need it because your base scalings are going to be upgraded. Now, in honor of the former active that it used to have, I gave it an active as well, and I also gave it an active to really hone into the fact that this item is meant for damage and purely damage. So, active, final hour. After channeling for 1.5 seconds, so that's a mini stun, fire a beam that deals 300 plus 50% ability power magic damage to all enemies it passes through. This is meant to be a whopper. So, this is meant to be a powerful ability, a powerful active that deals a lot of damage in an area of effect, with the downside that you have to stun yourself while channeling it. So, The Mythic passive is granting all of the legendary items a 100 damage increase to final hour. Now, obviously, I had a hard time deciding what to put here for a Mythic passive. I thought about AP, but it just didn't really feel right. So in the end, I went more all in on the active and gave it huge amounts of power, because obviously it's a skill shot that it stuns you, and it's a very expensive item that is very, very difficult to build. Now let's get onto the build path. It's a Hextech Alternator, a Blasting Wand, and a needlessly large rod. Now, Hextech Alternator is, in my opinion, probably the best mage component in the game. It's super, super powerful. It gives you a very big early spike in damage that also goes well with the theme of the item, in my opinion. The other two are just raw AP, and that's basically what we're going with. Now, this is a very painful item to build. I don't know if you would actually go for this first, because it's very daunting. It takes so long, and it's very, very slow. But my idea is that the payoff should be super huge. And I would like a very, very powerful, very heavy hitting mage item. And this is what I came up with. At number 4, and for the last item, we have Spirit's Bane, a hybrid damage mythic item. It costs 3400 gold and gives 50 AP, 25 AD, and 15 ability haste. This is purposely understated, and I will get to that later. Passive, Spellblade. After using an ability, your next attack is enhanced with an additional 125% total AD magic damage on hit on a 2.5 second cooldown. So we're going to have a Sheen that's going to provide a good early spike for people that actually look to build this item. Second passive, Soul Bond. Gain 1 attack damage for every 5 ability power. Now, this scales with itself, which is why I didn't put much AP onto the item, because it's total AP that's going to be scaling your attack damage, so it's obviously a very powerful passive. We get onto the Mythic passive. Grants all other legendary items 3 attack damage and 6 ability power. Keep in mind that this 6 ability power convert to 1 more AD. Now, like I said, don't look too much into the numbers. This might be busted. This might be very shit. I don't care. I'm here for the concept of the item. And the concept of the item is a Spellblade hybrid damage mythic that scales with itself and with AP to give you AD. This is my concept. Now, why do I do this? First, because there's more champions that actually want hybrid damage that build AP than those that build AD. Thinking about Kayle or Katarina or Akali, champions like that actually do want more AP, but also have AD scalings. The other side of the coin is things like Aurelia or Ezreal or Twitch, things like that actually want more AD, but also have good AP scalings, and they could just look into this item and consider building it, because their AP scalings are very good, but they're mostly rely on attack damage. For those champions, I do think that they should have access to AP, but I don't think they should be reaching high AP numbers, which is why the passive is based on AP and not on AD. Originally, it was both, but I thought about it, and I think this is a better way to design the item. And yeah, so why is it understated? For one, like I said, it scales with itself, so it's not actually statted as is, but it has the stats and then it has the passive. So it's gonna be a bit more if we in the current passive you have 50 AP, so we divide it by 5, we get 10 extra AD. So obviously that's a lot. Okay, now that I'm looking at it, this is way overpowered. This is way overpowered. Okay. Yeah, this is very overpowered. Don't look at the numbers. But yeah, my idea was to have AP give AD for those champions specifically that can build AP and then can convert it into AD. Now, it should be understated because hybrid damage is very difficult to itemize against. And we should take that into account when we account for the price of the item. Now, the reason is there's very little items that give both not AD and AP. There's very few items that give both MR and armor. And the ones that do don't give much of either. So when you build hybrid damage and when you do hybrid damage, it's very difficult to itemize against precisely because of this. Let's take a look at the build path. You have 2 longswords that build into a Koffel's Warhammer, we have a Sheen, and we have a Blasting Wand. Obviously, we have components for AP, we have components for AD, we have CDR, and we have obviously the Sheen. And I don't know, I'm a fan of hybrid damage. I think there should be a way in the game for you to build hybrid damage, but also, that being said, it should be weak. And I cannot stress this enough. It should be weak. The thing about hybrid damage is sort of the same as you see with assassins, in the sense that it's very polarizing. Take a look at a champion like Qiyana, for example. Qiyana is perceived to be really strong in solo queue, but it's very bad in pro play. Why is this? Well, it's very simple. Qiyana is a champion that relies a lot on roaming, and relies a lot on coin flipping, and relies a lot on getting super far ahead. And when she does get super far ahead, she's very, very oppressive. And she just one-shots you, and there's nothing you can really do. But if you flip the coin and she's behind, she is an absolutely useless champion, and she doesn't really do anything. Hybrid damage is obviously not the same, because you're not going to be one-shotting unless you're super far ahead, but it sort of is in the sense of the polarizing aspect of it. Because if somebody gets fed and somebody is doing hybrid damage, like they're going to be doing here, you don't really have a clear way to get items to stop them. You could build HP, but then you're super squishy because you don't have resistances. You can build AP if the champion's more AP heavy, but then you're going to have a substantial amount of AD damage coming your way. And you can't build armor because the amount of magic damage that you're going to be having is pretty substantial. This is also why the Sheen is magic damage, but it scales with AD. So all of those things combined make it so that hybrid is very powerful on its own, so it has to be understated in my opinion, because it's very polarizing, like I said. That being said though, I do believe there should be a way in the game to build for those hybrid damage dealers, or champions that have both types of scaling, AD and AP. Like I said, there's a long list of those. Twitch, Irelia, Kale, Katarina, Akali, Ezreal, and there's tons more that I'm not thinking of. And one thing those champions have in common, and one trend that I've noticed, is that they all really like Spellblade. So this is why I decided to include it as well. Anyway, let me know what you think of this item. I think this one's probably the hardest to assess, in my opinion. Now that I look at it, it's kind of overpowered, but maybe this isn't the way. But yeah, I really do think that there should be a way to itemize hybrid damage. This was the 4 items that we had for today. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys on the next one. Let me know if you want this to be a series or if I should leave it as one video. Also put in the comments some items that you would want to see. Remember to check me out on my socials. They're in the link in the description, and I will see you guys on the next one. Bye bye.